Hello, neighbor. Alicia Dolan here at Creating in My Corner. I am back from camping and ready to do some stamping with you. So I hope that you will stamp along with me if you want to. Tonight we're going to be using, hold on, I'll grab it. This Ringed with Nature stamp set, as well as the metal plate 3D embossing folder. Whoop, on the wrong side. So I hope that you will get out your supplies. You'll need some basic cardstock, some white, some ink, and you can always switch out for whatever stamp set that you have. But I hope that you'll join me. And I've decided that for the month of July, we're going to do Christmas in July for our Stampin' Sunday videos. And then my class this month, my live class in person, is going to be Christmas in July class as well. So I will be showing some other videos midweek, different maybe thinking of you or other sentiments, but I thought it would be really fun to do some getting ready for Christmas. So let me turn the camera around and we will get started. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about all that moving there. I thought I had the camera set up just right, but I feel like it never actually is just right. So here is the design that we're going to be working on tonight, and you could switch out the little colors of these houses for any that you like, and we're going to start right from the beginning. So don't be worried if you are behind. First, let me tell you what we need. We are going to need a piece of thick basic white for our card base. So a piece like this. And this is 8.5 by 5.5. So it's a full sheet of 8.5 by 11 that's just cut in half. So there's the first thing we're going to need. And then we need a piece of basic white. Now, if you don't know, the difference between the thick basic white and the basic white is how many pounds they are. And I can't tell you exactly what that number is. But I think that the thick basic white is an 80-pound cardstock. I am not sure what the basic white is, but it's definitely lighter and thinner. So you could use the basic white for the card base and the other parts. However, it is not as thick and it won't stand up quite as well if someone is going to put the card on display. So we need some, this is our basic white cardstock, and we're going to cut and stamp on that. We need some Pebbled Path cardstock. And here is a scrap piece. We don't need a whole lot, but we do need some. So there's a piece of that. And we also need some copper clay cardstock. And I keep all my extras in these little envelopes like this. And then I stack them up so that that's a thing I've come to do recently. It just kind of helps me organize them a little bit better. You can get these clear envelopes right on our website. So, and if you're looking for those and can't find them, let me know and I can help you with that. but I've just found that that's a great way to store those little extra pieces that aren't quite, they're not really big, but they're not, well, some of them are really small. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces, and then for our inks tonight, we're using a lot of different colors of ink, and we're only making one card tonight. I've been making two, but for my first time back since camping, we've only got one tonight. So we're going to use Copper Clay and Pebbled Path. These are both in colors, 2023 to 2025 in colors. And we're also going to use 4 colors from the Subtles collection. Now, if you order the whole collection, if you don't already have the majority of those inks, you can order the whole collection and you actually get a discount. But the 4 that we're going to use tonight are Bubble Bath, which is a new color, Pool Party, Balmy Blue, and Highland Heather. So the top 3 have been around for a while, but the Bubble Bath is a brand new color. And it's a nice soft pink. So if you're missing a soft pink, that would be a good one to choose. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to take our thick piece of cardstock, and I'm just going to double check to make sure that it measures 5.5 by 8.5. And it does. It's easy to measure that on our trimmer because 8.5 is here along the top. And if we close our blade, 5.5 is here along the side. And then we're going to slide it over to 4.25. And we're going to make a score mark there. And then we can take this card and fold it right on that score line, because that's right in the center. And we can use a bone folder just to press that down. And there we have our card base. So this, you can use this card base for a lot of cards. This is a really basic pattern. So there are 2 that I use a lot of the time, and it's 5.5 by 8.5, folded in half, and 4.25 by 11, folded in half. So one goes sideways and one goes tall ways, or it can go, well, either way, they can go sideways. So I guess that's a moot point. Okay, and we're going to take our piece of basic white, and we're going to cut this at 5 3/4. This is going to be a little smaller than what I usually do for my second layer, but not by much. And then we're going to cut it the other way at 4 1/8. And there we have that. Okay, I'm going to stop for just a second and make sure that there aren't any comments or questions before we go on. Okay, because I do try to watch for your comments or questions. All right, and what we're going to do with this piece of white is we're going to emboss it with our metal plate 3D embossing folder. Now, when you're using an embossing folder, if you look at the front, and I know this is the front because it says Stampin' Up on it, and it has this little line that goes across. Now, my older embossing folders don't have that. They're some of them have worn off, and some of them never had it to begin with. But what this does is we know which side of the embossing folder is the front. So we can open that up, and we can line up our piece of paper along that line so that our pattern is going to be straight when we emboss it. So now if you turn it over, you can see that the paper goes right along that line. With this pattern and with some of the patterns, it's not going to matter if it's a little bit crooked. But if you're using a brick pattern or a hardwood plank pattern and you want it to be nice and straight, you don't want it to be angled, then you can use that line to help you line it up. All right, and then I am going to run it through, and I'm going to run it through the Big Shot because that's what I have. And so if you don't have a Big Shot, if you have a Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you can use that as well. It looks like maybe our video has ended. Hold on 1 second. And let me see what's gone wrong. It looks like we are still on Zoom. Okay. I think we might still be live. I don't know why it told me that the video ended. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. If you can still hear me or see me and you can give me a thumbs up to let me know, or you can comment, that would be great. If you can't, I am just gonna keep on keeping on and hope that things are working out right. Let me run this through the embossing folder and see what we come up with. Okay, I am sorry about that, friends. That threw me off a little bit. I am still here and I am working. We will get this together. Okay. So this is our embossed piece of white. Can you see that pattern there? It's I know that it's more like diamond plate, but I thought it would kind of work for stars in this instance. All right, so here's our base and here is our first layer. We're going to use some of this pretty gold ribbon in here. And now we need to stamp our little houses. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of basic white and we're going to cut 4 pieces that are 1 3/4 by 1 1/2. So we're going to cut 4 of those. There's 1, 2, now if you're stamping along with me, that was 1 3/4 by 1 1/2. And if you're signed up for my email and you're not stamping along tonight, then you will get an email this week with the PDF of all these measurements so you can recreate this card. And I am going to be sending out some prizes from last month's card. I think it was last month. It could have been the month before, but from the previous card challenge, I'm going to be sending those out this week. And so this is our new challenge card for the month of July. So what I'm going to do is give you the first 3 weeks of July to compete in the challenge. And then when that is up, I'm going to send out the prize the 4th week. So all you have to do to compete in the card casing challenge is create a card that's similar in pattern to the one that I'm making tonight and post it on my page and tag me in that post. All right, and so now I've got the little house already on a block. And so this is the little house that we're going to stamp tonight. And it fits really well on this block, which is block C. Okay, and we're going to stamp it in each one of these colors: Highland Heather, Balmy Blue, Pool Party, and Bubble Bath. Okay, so that is our first job. So I'm going to open up my Highland Heather ink. And I noticed today that some of my inks were new and they were really full of ink. And sometimes when that happens, they'll leave little bubbles on your stamp. So what I usually try to do is I tap my stamp really gently, because if you press hard and there's a lot of ink on your ink pad, it will get in all those little lines, and then your stamp will just kind of it won't have as much definition. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to practice stamp up here, and I'm just going to stamp over top of my stamping from earlier. Okay, and so we're going to put this right in the middle. Let's see, I'm double checking to make sure you can see that. And we're going to press it down, and we want to press down in the center so that our stamp gets pressed down evenly all the way around. So there is our Highland Heather stamp, and then I'm going to stamp off a little bit here. That is not a really bright ink, and so there's not, when you stamp off, you won't get a lot of extra ink. Okay, and then we're going to clean that off. We're going to clean this off in between each one because we definitely do not want our colors to be mixing. Okay, so there's the first one. Next will be our Balmy Blue. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tap, practice stamp. I'll just stamp over top of this other blue over here. Okay, and then I'm going to stamp on my next basic white square. It's actually a rectangle, it's not a square. I tried squares at first, but they were not quite the right shape. All right, we're going to clean that off, close up the Balmy Blue. And next we're going to stamp the Pool Party. And each time we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tap, practice stamp, tap again. That gives me an opportunity too, if I notice that my ink pad has picked up any fuzzies or dog hair, that I can pick it out with a piece of a pair of tweezers so that it doesn't end up in my project. All right, there's pool party. And next we're going to do the bubble bath. Okay, so there are our 4 little houses, and I'm just going to push those up here to the side for now. I'm going to clean off my stamp and close up my ink. Then we need our copper clay and pebbled path, and we need the little top of our roof that goes on our house. And this one I put on block B. So I have a block B and block C, and that makes it easier for me when I'm doing multiple stampings. I can stamp and clean, and I don't have to worry about switching my stamps from block to block. I like to have a couple different sizes so that if I'm doing bigger projects, I can just keep on stamping. All right, and so now I have a little piece of basic white here. I'm going to open up my copper clay, and I'm going to tap, practice stamp, tap again, and I'm trying to tap really gently so that I don't press in. Right, and I'm going to stamp 2 copper clay roofs. Let's see, I think I stamped them kind of like this before. Okay, I'm going to clean that off, close up my ink, and then I'm going to open my pebbled path ink. And all right, so now we're going to stamp 2 more little roofs in pebbled path. Oh, that looks a lot darker than the, maybe it will dry a little bit lighter. Okay, let me tap it again. I'm pretty sure I didn't stamp off the first time, but that looks much darker than my first attempt. But I'm wondering if maybe it'll dry. Sometimes when you first stamp, the color looks really dark and then it'll lighten up a little bit. Okay, so that's it for right now for our stamping. I know we're using a lot of colors tonight, but some of them I'm thinking you might already have, and you could always switch them out. All your houses could be the same. They could be different. They can be whatever color you have. Okay, and now we are going to fussy cut our little roofs out. So what you want to do when you're fussy cutting is keep your scissors pointing up. So we're going to try turning our paper and not turning our scissors. Now, if you have been used to turning your scissors and not your paper, you might find it a little bit of a difficult adjustment. But I think once you try it, you'll find that your lines are smoother when you're cutting, and you're less likely to turn your scissors and poke into your holding hand. In most cases, when the pieces are a little bit small, sometimes all those rules do not help as much as you might think they would. All right, we're going to go right around our little roofs. Okay, and there's one. And we need all 4 of these. So another thing about when you're fussy cutting is you don't want to go super slow, but you don't want to rush either. I found that for me, the more I can keep my project towards this end of my scissors, the better off I am as far as making smooth lines and smooth turns. If it gets down into this area, for whatever reason, I don't have as much control over it. And whenever I can get a little bit of control over something, I try to take advantage of it. I feel like there's so much in life that we have not got a lot of control over. Okay, so there's two copper clay roofs, and they can go on any one of these houses you want to put them on. And now we'll cut out these little pebbled path roofs. Okay, I am still watching for comments. So if you have any comments or questions, you can put them right in the chat here on Facebook. I will post this video on YouTube later. So if you're watching on YouTube and you have any comments, I do go back and I check for comments or likes and shares. So anytime you comment, like, or share a video, I didn't know if you know this, but it puts it in a different, kind of in a different level. So whenever you're watching anyone on YouTube or on Facebook, if you like or comment or share their videos, that's really helpful to them. I cannot tell you how excited I was when I got close to, I think I'm still close to getting to 100 followers on YouTube. And that is really exciting for me. All right, so here we're almost done with our little roofs. This is a stamp set from last year that carried over. And it has a lot of really great sentiments in it. But I thought we'd make kind of a non-traditional Christmas card today. So that's what that's what you're gonna see. So now we have 4 little roofs and 4 little houses. So next what we're gonna do is cut a second layer to go behind each of these little houses. And what we're going to do is cut 2 that are copper clay and 2 that are pebbled path. So first we're going to cut our copper clay at 1 7/8. Now I don't always work in eighths, but I wanted the edge around them to be really small. So that's what I did tonight. And then when we turn them to the side, we're going to cut them at 1 5/8. So they're going to form a thin border right around each of those white rectangles. Okay, so they're going to be 1 7/8 by 1 5/8. I feel like maybe I didn't give that right measurement the first time. So that's what they're going to be. Oh, hi, Tammy. All right, let's see, 1 7/8. I see your comments now. Let's see. I know. I really like fussy cutting. I'm probably one of the only people who like fussy cutting. But ever since I've been crafting, something I really like to do for some crazy reason is make things smaller. I'm always smalling things down. So anything that's finicky or fussy, I am drawn to it like a magpie. I don't I don't know. Um, but I love things that are a little bit difficult. Like if it makes it harder for me to do a craft, that's what I do, even though it'll take me about 10 times longer. All right, and I'm going to bring Mortimer over and we'll get to gluing our basic white to our little backgrounds. And what we're going to do is put our thin line of glue around the edge. And we're going to leave a little spot for our finger and then we'll squiggle in the middle. So we can do both of these at the same time as long as we remember that we have done both of these so that we don't get stuck to them. All right, and then Mortimer will hold my glue for me. And because it's liquid glue, we can line it up and get it right in the center. Now you can see right here why you don't want to get too much glue. Here I've done a little thing that I always tell you not to do. See that little corner right there with that tiny ooze of glue sticking out? We're going to let that dry and we're not going to push it down so that it doesn't squeeze out everywhere. Okay, so we're just going to set that over to the side to dry. And before I turn this one over, you can see right here where I made kind of a big bubble of glue. So I'm just going to take the tip of my glue and smush out any spot that I think might ooze over the edge. Okay. Then I can put my finger in that little holder spot I made. Line this up in the center. And this time, none of the glue will ooze out. So if you're ever looking at your gluing and thinking, that is totally going to ooze out over the edge, then just take the tip of your glue and smoosh it back in towards the center. All right, so there's two. And we're going to put our little copper clay roofs over here. And we can turn over our pink and our balmy blue houses. And we'll do a thin line of glue around the edge and a squiggle down the middle on each one. And we're going to make sure that we don't get our glue in the other. Okay, this one is a little bit much, so we're going to smoosh that in. Okay, and then one at a time, we're going to pick those up by their little holding places that we left. Line them up in the middle and press them down. I know lots of people are not the same way about small things, but there are those of us, aren't there, Tammy, who we're just drawn to little tiny things. I love to crochet tiny little, I love doilies, and I've made quite a few, not recently, because since I got into card making, I haven't done as much crochet. I haven't done as much other crafts, but I kind of cycle through. So in the wintertime, I crochet more Afghans and I do more of that because I sit while I'm watching TV and do that. Or while everyone else is watching TV, I'm just in the room with them. Okay, and then we're going to add our little roofs. So we're going to turn them over. And I have these are right here are little teeny edges of Stampin' Dimensionals. that fit just perfect on this little edge of the house. Okay, so we're gonna put those over there. And this is just what's left along the edge here of Stampin' Dimensionals. All right, and then we'll put our Stampin' Dimensional. These are mini Stampin' Dimensionals. You could use the regular size ones. Either one will fit on that far side. I just grabbed the little ones because they were closer to me. Okay. So here is our first little roof. And I'm just holding it by the chimney and lining it up. And we can stick it down. So there's one. They do kind of look like little postage stamps, don't they? I thought they were so cute. I like these little houses. I haven't used them nearly as much as I wanted to. So when I was planning my video for today, I was like, oh, I'm gonna use those. I'm gonna use those little houses. Okay, so there's two. And here's our other ones. You know what I just noticed is that I did it opposite the way I had intended the coloring. So I guess if I hadn't told you that, maybe you wouldn't know, but now you know my secret. Okay, there are those. And we're gonna put our other little roofs on here. I don't know if you saw my post last week, but I was camping. I think you did. And when I got back, let's see, last night, my dog was really, I thought that she was sick. Something was wrong with her. Um, she wasn't eating and she wasn't getting around very well. But she seemed to be doing better when we got home. And then she ate her dinner and she seemed to be feeling better after that. So when we got up this morning, I thought that she would be all better, but she was not. And I missed church this morning because I took her to an emergency vet to see if we could figure out what was wrong with her. Well, we still haven't. And while we were there, she acted almost normal. But they did say they think that she hurt herself somehow. Like she's favoring her back a little bit and she was walking kind of bent over and hunched. But she's much better now. So I'm hoping that maybe she just pulled a muscle. I don't know if that happens to dogs or not, but she ate her dinner just fine and she seems to be walking just fine. But she's definitely much slower than she normally is. And she's only 2, so she really is still just a puppy. She missed me. You know, I thought that too. That's what my husband thought. He thought she was depressed because she thought I was gone forever. But but after taking her to the vet, I'm pretty sure that something is wrong. So I'm going to have to take her again tomorrow. All right, now we're taking this is satin edged ribbon and it's gold. This is a really pretty ribbon. And I thought this would add a little extra Christmassy feel to our card. Let's see. I need to go. I always struggle with the bows, so it takes me a minute to figure out if I go left over right or right over left, how it all works. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a bow on the left. I'm going to come around. Nope. I'm going to come around the front side this time and tuck that through the middle. Sometimes I have to turn my whole project upside down to get my bow to face the right way. And it looks like this time it's going to go sideways, no matter what I do. So I think what I'll do is scoot it up here by the top. I do have a little pattern for these houses in mind, so I'm hoping everything will work together for good here and not for evil, right? I'm gonna have to tie one more time. Come on, little bow, work together for the good of all. All right, here we go. We're gonna pull up our loop on the left. We're gonna go, I don't know, maybe let's try going around the back and seeing what happens. So I went around the front before, right? So let's see what it does. I think that might have worked out the way I wanted it to. We'll see in a second here when we tighten it up. And I know that it looks like I'm wasting quite a lot of bow here, but sometimes to get it to go the right direction, that's a sacrifice I have to make. Thank you. I am glad she's doing better too. I was really worried about her. And not that I am still taking her to the vet tomorrow, even though she seems to be doing better. Okay, so now we're going to add this on here, but I want to line up my little houses first, just to make sure they're going to go the way I think I want them to go. Because oops, no, that's not right. I want to opposite them. Okay, so like that. And this one here. And this one here. And then I'm going to put my sentiment down here. Okay, so I like that. And I'm going to line them up so I don't forget which way I want them to go. All right, we're going to turn our embossed piece over and grab our glue from Mortimer again. I'm so thankful for him holding my glue upright. Okay, and then we're going to do our thin line around the edge. We're going to leave that space for our finger. And we're going to do a squiggle down the middle. Now you can squiggle a little more when you have an embossed piece of paper, because some of it's going to go into those grooves. And you want to make sure you get enough on the flat parts that it's going to stick to your card well. Okay, so we're going to turn our card over, line this up in the center, and press it down. And once again, I really think the nicest part about that liquid glue is if it's not right in the center, you have a couple seconds, you can scoot it around. Okay. So I feel like I'm fussing with that bow, but I always fuss a little too much and they end up looking bad in the end. So I'm going to try not to do that. Okay, so here is our little pink house, and we're going to put our Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of that. And I'm going to use the little ones and just put one in each corner. Okay, and here is our little purple house. Now I set mine up so that the pebbled pad and the copper clay are opposite each other, because that was the way I wanted that to be. So I'm going to lay this one on here so I kind of know where it goes, so that this one can get in the right spot. And I kind of want the same amount on the sides, but I want them to be close together in the middle. And I couldn't tell you why that's the way I want them, only that's the way I want them. So sometimes I have a reason behind my design, but sometimes I don't. It's just the way it's in the picture in my head. And not everything works out the way the picture in my head is. So if you have that happen to you, don't worry. Sometimes it's a good thing that it doesn't work out exactly like how you pictured it. Kind of like life. Life doesn't always work out exactly the way you pictured it would be, but it can be a blessing in spite of that. Okay, and then, yeah, okay, I'm just making sure that I'm putting them in the right place here. So we're gonna put our second ones on there. All right. Oh, I just put my arm in all the little dimensional backs, and now they're sticking to me. All right, and this little house has a pebbled path back. And so I'm going to put this one on this side. And this one is copper clay, so I'm going to put that on the other side. And I don't know if you heard Tammy at the beginning of this video. I can't remember exactly when I saw your name pop up, but this is going to be my Visa card challenge for July. So for the first 3 weeks of July, if you case this card, so I know that you know this, but maybe not everyone does. But casing means copy and share everything. So if you copy the design of this card and you post it on my page, then I will enter you in a drawing for some prizes or a prize. I'm not sure yet what it'll be. But I'll be sending out prizes this month for the last case of card drawing. Okay, so here is our card so far. And what I thought would be really cool, let's see how big the Merry Christmas is. I'm going to use this Merry Christmas sentiment, and we can put that on a block H. Lots of those H blocks. And I thought it would be really cool tonight if we embossed it in gold. So let me grab, see, I think this piece will work really well. We need our Versamark ink. Let's see, our embossing buddy, our embossing tray, and our gold embossing powder. Oh, that's right, your hand. How is your hand doing, Tammy? Or is it something else? I know you had that surgery on your hand. And now I can't find my embossing tool. Oh. Okay, I was just tucked in the bottom of my bag. Hold on, we're gonna get it. And my embossing tool is an older one. The Stampin' Up one is really nice. It's got different settings. Mine has only one setting. Oops. There are definitely some things I want to upgrade eventually, and I just haven't gotten to them yet. All right, so what we're going to do is take our embossing buddy. And we can rub it on our piece of basic white. And what that does is it leaves a little, it's kind of a powdery film on there. It doesn't bother anything. It won't affect your stamping or anything else. But what it will do is allow the embossing powder to slip off the places that you don't want it to be easier. Okay, so we're going to tap in our Versamark ink. And you kind of want to tap all over. Now, I did redo my ink just a short while ago, so it should work fairly easy. But if it's a little bit older, you want to tap, tap, tap a lot to make sure that you get it everywhere. All right. And then what we're going to do is stamp, and we're just going to press down gently but firmly. And then when you look at it, if you can see it in the light, see how those words are on there? Okay, and then next, I'm going to use my little scrap piece because I can always grab another one. I'm going to put that over the top, and I'm going to sprinkle the gold embossing powder over it. So I'm going to tap it just so it falls on there. And you don't need a ton, but you definitely want it to be the words to be covered. Okay. And then what I like to do is set my embossing powder on there, bend my saying up just a little bit, and then I try to dump it right back into the case, the most of it. And then see how, okay, you can see how it looks now. And I'm going to flick it a little bit here off to the side. You want to be careful with embossing powder because it will get everywhere. Okay. And I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to throw it right away because I feel like there's no way I could ever get all that embossing powder back off of there into the tub. And I never dump it back out of the tray just because I don't clean the tray out and I don't want my embossing powders to mix. If they mix, you won't get a solid image. All right, and then I want to show you the magic of embossing. I always feel like it's magic. So I'm going to turn the sound off just for a second so that you won't hear the embossing gun too loud. Okay, I hope you were able to see that. Embossing is actually something I learned before I knew about Stampin' Up. A long time ago. Well, I say a long time ago, it feels long to me. I was a teenager when my mom bought some embossing powder, some special cards, and she would emboss her own Christmas cards and greeting cards. Um, and that was a good long while ago. And sometimes she would let me sit with her and make some cards. But that was like my first introduction to embossing. So when Stampin' Up came along and I found out they had embossing was a big part of Stampin' Up when I started, was part of Stampin' Up cards. And so I was so excited to be back into embossing. It is easy to forget to use it because it requires you have to have the heat tool, you have to have all the right stuff. You got to have your little box of powders. But I think, especially when it comes to Christmas time or weddings or sympathy cards, heat embossing adds a little something special. So, okay, so here is our Merry Christmas. And what we're going to do is, guess what? We're going to fussy cut one more time. All right, so here we go. And this time we're going to do kind of a real basic one. We're not going to get too close. We're just going to kind of almost kind of make it a bubble word. Now, if you do have a hard time doing this, one thing that I found makes it easier, the fussy cutting of words easier, is if you take a pencil and you draw around it first. I don't always take the time to do that, but if I was going to get in really close to each of these letters, that's something I would definitely do. Because once again, all those little details are important to me. Okay, so now we have our little Merry Christmas. And I almost wish I'd made it bigger on this side so that the ends kind of match, but I did not. And we're going to put this right down here. So I'm just going to turn it over and put a couple dimensionals on here. I'm going to use 3 this time because I'm feeling like I want to just overdo things a little bit today. Sometimes I get like that. I just want to be a little bit much. All right. And then we're going to put our Merry Christmas right down here. And now I need to look for a few little gems. I'd like to put a few little gems on there. And I think that some of these little brushed metallic gold would be really pretty. So I'm grabbing my take your pick tool, and I'm just going to pick up some of these little ones, and I'm going to sprinkle them around. Okay. Now, this is our card for tonight. And I think even though it's not traditional Christmas colors, it turned out really pretty. So I am so glad that you joined me tonight for Stampin' Sunday. We're just doing one card tonight, and I'll be sending out the PDF this week. And this is our case of card challenge. So I'll also take a picture of this one and post it up. So I'll be sending out the prize from the last casing challenge. And this one is for the next 3 weeks. So through let me look at a calendar real quick. Thank you, Tammy. I really like gold and silver for Christmas. Let's see, where's my calendar? And I can tell you when the challenge will end. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. All right, so the challenge will end on July 23rd, which is actually my husband's birthday. So I probably will not get to actually ending the challenge until the 24th. So let's say July 24th. And maybe you could case it, Tammy, but with maybe you could put, I don't know, maybe somehow you could do less stamping or less fussy cutting, but it's totally up to you. And I'm planning on doing this at least every other month. So there'll be plenty more chances to participate in the casing challenges. Happy stamping, and I will see you next week. Have a great week.